She caught her in the neck. And then she's immediately going to the refs. Look at it. Go to the monitor, my neck. And the refs ignore it. Like, that's really bad. That is really bad with the refs. I thought it was this one. When I said, oh, this is nothing, I thought it was this situation here that they were looking at. And I was like, no. Like, it is what it is. But, like, that's a push off on the neck. You just can't do that. You simply but can't do that. And then when your player's like, she got me in the neck, go to the monitor. No, she didn't. Like, that's when you show referee favoritism.
This was starting to look like more than just a normal basketball played. IT felt personal. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark were battling for position when Reese's arm suddenly moved toward Clark's neck. And that's when the situation took a serious turn. Some fans believe it wasn't accidental, pointing to the long-standing tension between Reese and Clark and suggesting jealousy could be fueling the rivalry. Clark reacted right away, but the officials took no action. There was no review, no replay check, and no punishment, which only made fans more frustrated. If Reese really meant to send a message to Clark, then this wasn't simply aggressive basketball. IT was a warning, and their rivalry may have just reached a whole new level.
The fact that the referees refused to go to the monitor is pathetic. Like, the fact they refuse to go to the monitor, but genuinely, like, I can't believe that the referees just said no. Again, this is not a cheap shot. This is an offensive foul.
The biggest problem wasn't only the contact to Caitlin Clark's neck, but everything that happened leading up to it. Angel Reese was battling Clark for position, and if that initial contact had been called, the situation near Clark's neck might never have occurred. That's why the play caused so much debate. Reese could have been focused on the ball or simply trying to make room, but once her arm reaches a player's head or neck area, officials still have to address the contact. Clark wasn't reacting to ordinary physical basketball. She was responding to contact in one of the most sensitive areas of the body. The controversy grew because Reese is known for playing with a high level of physicality. She attacks the boards, battles for position, and uses her body aggressively. But that style also comes with responsibility. Officials need to establish a clear boundary because when that boundary isn't enforced, players may continue testing the limits. That can create more frustration, more physical confrontations, and eventually retaliation. For Clark, the question was straightforward. Where is the line and why wasn't it enforced?
And again, this is not a dangerous play. This is not a cheap shot. This is not any of that. But it is a clear hit to the neck. It looks very unintentional. That doesn't matter. Intent does not matter when you hit somebody in the neck. When you hit somebody in the head. It is a shit one. But you have...
Angel Reese's mindset matters here because she was clearly playing with a lot of emotion. The transcript raises questions about why Reese continued making aggressive movements later in the game. She missed a layup, looked frustrated, struggled with her shot, and was involved in another physical sequence before another exchange near Aaliyah Boston. None of those moments alone prove that Reese had bad intentions, but together they show how quickly emotions can affect a heated game. Reese was frustrated, and her physical style became even more noticeable. That is where strong officiating becomes critical. Good referees don't just respond after a major collision happens. They set the tone before things reach that point. If Reese is called for an offensive foul early, she understands the boundary. If Clark receives the same level of protection, she understands the boundary too. And if Boston is involved in contact, she should know the same rules apply. Consistency keeps situations from escalating. Did I end this case? The criticism is that the opposite happened. Reese kept playing aggressively because the whistle wasn't clearly stopping it, while Clark continued dealing with the consequences. That doesn't prove Reese intentionally targeted Clark. IT means the officials had chances to control the game and, according to the criticism, didn't do enough. The distinction matters because the Clark-Reese rivalry already receives enormous attention. Every possession between them gets analyzed. Every physical exchange becomes a social media debate, and every whistle becomes ammunition for both sides. That's exactly why the officiating needs to be consistent. When Clark takes contact near the neck without a review, critics question whether she's being protected enough. When Reese is penalized in another situation, her supporters question whether she's being treated unfairly. The only way to settle that argument is consistent officiating, and that was the biggest thing missing in this sequence.
You pull back after ref calls and flail back. Like, there's nothing to be gained from doing that. If you hit Aaliyah, you're out of the game. If you're out of the game and you've already flailed and got Caitlin Clark in the next, and you're flailing and this much off smacking Aaliyah in the face with a flail. It doesn't, like, not that it doesn't make sense, but I'm like, what is there to be gained by it? Because it's not going to hurt anybody.
The biggest concern for Angel Reese wasn't necessarily that one contact with Caitlin Clark, but what could happen if the physicality continued to escalate. The transcript points to Reese later making aggressive movements toward Aaliyah Boston while clearly showing frustration, creating a dangerous chain reaction. One missed call can lead to another physical exchange, which can lead to retaliation, technical fouls, or even an ejection. For Indiana, protecting Caitlin Clark isn't only about keeping her physically safe, it's also about keeping her focused on running the offense. Clark is the engine of the fever, and when she's spending possessions dealing with physical contact instead of creating plays, Indiana loses some of its biggest advantage. Reese presents a different challenge because her physical strength can control games, but she also has to make sure frustration doesn't influence her decisions. That's what makes this rivalry so interesting. Clark relies on tempo, spacing, playmaking, and attacking defensive mistakes, while Reese relies on controlling the paint, rebounding, positioning, and physical pressure. Those styles are naturally going to clash. Clark needs freedom to operate, while Reese wants to make the game physical, which makes every whistle important. If officials allow excessive contact against Clark, Indiana's rhythm can suffer. If they call every aggressive move by Reese, Chicago may feel like her natural style is being restricted. The answer isn't giving Clark special treatment or limiting Reese. The answer is applying the exact same standard to both players. That is the biggest lesson from this controversy. This rivalry doesn't need more chaos. It needs clearer boundaries. Clark and Reese already attract massive attention, so the officials shouldn't become part of the storyline. Their job is to let the players decide the game through basketball. If Reese continues playing physically against Clark, every high arm, push, collision, and contact near the head or neck will receive even more attention. The two players are supposed to represent one of the league's biggest rivalries. Reese brings power and physical dominance, while Clark brings creativity and offensive firepower. But once contact reaches Clark's neck and there is no review, the conversation immediately stops being about basketball. That's the real issue. Not necessarily that Reese intended to hurt Clark or that every collision deserves an ejection, but that officials must establish a consistent standard before physicality turns into something more serious. Reese has to control her frustration, Clark has to continue competing through the contact, and the referees have to make sure the rules are applied the same way to everyone. So the question remains, if that exact same contact had happened to Angel Reese instead of Caitlin Clark, would the officials have made the same decision?